So this is the Charlotte train unaliving. Graphic video captures random fatal poking of young Ukrainian refugee. So if you haven't heard, there was a woman who was fatally slashed in a train. When I first saw this story, it was just like, okay, like this is crazy. This is just this getting wild out here in these spiritual streets. But I see that there are a lot of perspectives and how it's going back to National Guard and stuff like that, which I feel like is a part of the propaganda. Hear me out, okay? Because on this channel, we have difficult conversations, tough talks, things that people aren't really talking about, or things that aren't being said about viral topics from a spiritual, biblical truth perspective. If this is something that you're interested in or want to hear about, shoot, tell me what you think. If I'm wrong in the comments, whatever, let's talk about it. All right. I'm going to play the video real quick for context. And then I'm going to have a couple other clips that I ran into that I find starkly interesting because it really shows where things are headed. So just like that, that's how it went down. Now, obviously they're not going to show you the actual actions of it happening. Even when I watched it, I'm just like, she's just sitting there. I don't see, but I see the blood spots on the floor and on her pants and stuff like that. She did not make it through that situation. And of course, condolences to the family. I'm sorry that had went down. And it's just, this is important to touch on and talk about. Now, as a person that used to frequent public transportation, like these are kind of sort of the things that you think about and worry about. At least I did, as far as like, who you're around and what people are going to do. And people aren't going to trust people even more now, but it's really apparent. There was another video that was interesting to me that made me look deeper into this too.
Stabbing a young black.
And before somebody says I'm making this about race, it was because I ran into this video. This is why when people say everything's not about colorism, everything's not about race, but when we're inundated with it, it's always brought up and it is a part of this matrix and living it everyday life. So like I'm going to talk about it. This news station had came up fair use. I'm going to go ahead and speed up playback speed as well, and I'm not starting it from the beginning of video, and I'm not watching the whole clip. I'm fair use. I'm modifying, edifying, and putting my own putting edification onto the situation. And I noticed something. It says Israel and Civilization, that book in the background. I wonder if that's his book or whatever the case is. So it's very interesting to see. But just hear what this man has to say about the Ukrainian girl unalived in horrific attack.
I hate to say it, but
He says he hates
The
to say
whole
it, but I don't
thing
think
is
so.
just so sickening.
Rita, I hate to say it, but I mean, the video speaks for itself. This is a black person who is murdering a blonde woman here, and that is not the kind of story here in American media that the media is typically going to cover very quickly. I'm sorry to just be so blunt and to say it like it is, but that is just the tragic reality. I guarantee you that if the roles were reversed here, and if this was a white person who was stabbing a young black girl to death there, that the media would be all over this. They would literally never let this story go. I mean, this is kind of just a DEI ideology at work. I mean, this is kind of just the neo-Marxism of oppressed levels, of people who are oppressed, people who are oppressors there. And if you take that logic to its logical conclusion, then you will actually find people who are ultimately trying to make justifications for violence. I don't spend a whole lot of time on Blue Sky, which is kind of where a lot of left-wing people went after Elon Musk bought Twitter/X. But I've spent a little time on Blue Sky. So I actually do value trying to understand where my political opponents are coming from there. There is an astonishing amount of violent rhetoric and outright explicit calls for political violence on Blue Sky. And generally speaking, the left is in a very, very, very dark place in this country there. Again, it makes me frankly very nervous in many ways. I'm not happy to report these news there. But I think that is kind of something going on here when it comes to the lack of media coverage as well. I think a lot of it is just the racist, the DEI ideology at work there. But there's this kind of bloodlust for violence in certain very extreme corners. And if we know anything about left-wing media in the United States, and I assume
So essentially, I don't know, he started rambling, but essentially he's saying there's not a lot of media coverage. Donald Trump is talking about this. So what are you talking about? Then on top of that, there are plenty of instances where, for example, truckers are being unalived in these sundown towns. They're not getting publicity. You're not seeing any of it. You're seeing this sprinkled on all different news avenues. It's very interesting that he wants to mention, and people like him want to mention, oh, if this, I'm so shocked it's not getting enough media coverage. If this was that, it would be this, that, and the third all day long. But it is getting media coverage. This video alone has over 6,000 likes on a channel with over 5.8 million subscribers, almost 6 million subscribers. I mean, you're getting the traffic, and this is just this one channel. It also says in the comments, it says he doesn't belong in prison. He belongs under the prison. Yet another hate crime never called what it is. Okay. Yep. Sick of this people. I'm thinking they want to say these people as in a I'm just getting a racist vibe going on. Okay. I'm going hunting them. Look at the racism, y'all. It's an excuse. And it's like he's saying DEI. DEI program never benefited black people for real. If you really must know, I still had to go into interviews, making sure my real hair is not showing, and pull up to a white man or a white woman who has a job that is not their resume is no better than mine. Okay. Yes, I haven't gone to school, but trust me, I've run into those people where you like, oh, they knew somebody or they walked in and then they would turn out to be an idiot because their own company that has hired them sees that they're an idiot and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So many different examples of this, right? So you're saying that he's saying when he says oppression, oh, the oppression of basically he's saying he's mocking the oppression that we have gone through and saying that I guess he's saying it's his own black fatigue or whatever the case is, because I feel like that's what he really want to say about about this situation. See how you see the situation and you see that it's a man and a woman. I can see color obviously, but we see that race does matter here because he's pointing it out, is being pointed out. Okay. They didn't even want to say Ukrainian woman, probably. They probably wanted to say white woman because it's just is what it is. So when you think, and when he says different roles or the roles were different and it was a black woman getting poked, then oh, it would be such a big deal and da 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 da. I know, duh. Like, we literally went through 400 years of slavery and are still going through oppression as we speak in every avenue. We have to live that on a daily basis, okay? That's just what it is. I'm looking at it and I'm just looking at it. There's a man and a woman. They also added that he said something about, oh, this white girl or something like that. I'm going to talk about what else. It's going to sound like conspiracy, but whatever. I feel like this is about also later on in the video. So, and then see how the comments immediately go on to the N word with a hard R hunting. There are a lot of racist people in this world. And the fact that he's saying all that as if we haven't gone through oppression, as if you didn't feed our babies to alligators, as if there weren't slave women who were operated on while alive, while awake, no anesthesia, getting opened up by a group of white men in a room, as if we didn't go through these things, or if our ancestors didn't go through that we don't have no say, or we shouldn't be talking about these type of instances. Like, I don't understand. And the judge, there was another clip. There's a judge that let him go, and he's like got removed.
Let's bring in a
Again, fair use, not watching the whole thing. The video is sped up of playback. Okay, it says lawmakers take action to remove judge who let Charlotte suspect free. So apparently, allegedly, they let the judge free. I mean, they let the slasher free. It says if a bartender can be held liable for over serving, a judge should be held liable for under sentencing. We can call it Enablers Act. The judge needs to be charged and held accountable. This has over 24,000 likes, by the way, so this story is getting its attention.
Former Assistant FBI Director Chris Swecker. And let's pick it up where Pam Bondi left off. Do you think the feds will actually be able to establish jurisdiction in this case? Because I still think that's a little bit of an open question. And if so, if they are able to establish jurisdiction over a mass transit system, how far could the Trump administration go in going after mass transit crime in all of our cities?
Yeah, I mean, they did manage to sort of shoehorn a federal crime into this scenario. And I applaud them for that, because, look, I live in Charlotte. I chaired the crime commission in North Carolina. I'm a former assistant DA. I see a broken system here in Charlotte, particularly when it comes to accountability in the area of prosecution.
See how they're going hard and they're seeing a broken system and stuff like that because of this Ukrainian woman, right? Mind you, they're saying refugee. So when it's, a Mexican or a Haitian or whatever, we're just illegals, right? Immigrants, right? And that's a whole nother topic I'm about to go into right now. But you see all of that, right? But I notice when it comes to European immigrants, okay, they're there for good cause. Okay, they're seeking refuge. Okay, they're X, Y, and Z, right? So they're focusing on this situation. I mean, it's gotten to Trump, and now they're bringing the feds in. So if you tell me, let's make the roles different. So if it was a black man, a so-called black man, and a man from the islands, or a Haitian immigrant getting unalived in this type of way, would it be the same reaction? And I'm not even including any white people in this. Just a question. Would it have been the same situation? These are just the questions that I ask.
Prosecutions of all kinds of crimes. So, federal statutes have teeth. When you get sentenced, you'll do every single day of your sentence. It's stricter sentencing. It's more longer sentences in federal court, more competent prosecution in federal court. So I applaud that. They may have to wait in line for the local prosecution, but this ensures that none of those sort of blue state progressive soft.
So they talk about some other stuff. But at the end of the day, there's another point that I wanted to just point out real quick about the video and about how the man was acting in the video. Now, it's going to sound real conspiracy, but it is what it is. But this is just something that the Lord had put in my spirit to even think about, right? And that is the biological warfare that we're going through. I can't really say too much on these platforms, but essentially the nanotechnology that they put into swords, that they give to people, especially during the situation that happened 5 years ago. And I'm making this video in 2025. So that's a thing. A lot of people are changing genetically, okay? Because that thing that will happen in 2020 is to prepare people who are going to take the mark, prepare their body, and whatever the case is. And the mark is that final thing that will just have them basically hardwired for Satan. Okay, it sounds like how it sounds. If you go back to the video,
4:10 p.m. on August 22nd, and 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr. is seated on a Charlotte light rail train. Several other people are around him. According to officials, a few minutes later, the train doors open, and 23-year-old Arina Zarutska gets on and takes a seat in front of Brown. She's wearing what appears to be a work uniform, AirPods, and looking at her phone. But then, the unthinkable happens. You see Brown pull out what officials say was a pocket knife. He He unfolds it, then stands up behind Zarutska. What we aren't showing you is the moment.
So the reason why I'm playing this video, and earlier you saw that it looked like he was wrestling with his thoughts in the video, and I came across this article, okay? It says, the family of Declarius Brown Jr., the man accused of fatally poking 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Irina Saruska on a Charlotte NC light rail train on August, says the unaliver suspect was previously diagnosed with schizophrenia and was hearing voices in his head prior to the attack. Brown's sister, Tracy Brown, said her brother was believed Zaruska was reading his mind prior to the sudden attack, according to the report. And I had heard this from someone, and I literally, like, the fact that I'm coming across it and that it's schizophrenia, which is all of these different illnesses, mental, quote-unquote mental illnesses that are labeled like OCD, schizophrenia, ADHD, all of these different things, in my opinion, are spiritual attacks, are something spiritual. That's why they call them emotional disorders. Emotions are spirits, okay? The spirit of jealousy. And you can see this in different parts of the Bible, where with David and Saul, when he would get into his moods and David would come and play the harp, and the evil spirits would go away from him. Those spirits would go away from him. And that's why it's important to peep game. People are going to say this is religious or whatever this case is, but are literally living in a spiritual and emotional aspect in their lives. Something was going on in his head where he was battling some type of demons. And there are even drugs like the depression medication, or another example, for autism. Sometimes they'll give autistic youths autistic medication, or ADHD medication. And there was an instance where there was a child that I know that had taken this medication and it was overdosed, and they told me and that's one of the side effects, they started hearing voices. Okay, these depression medications, all of these different things are not meant to cure you. They are linked to some type of demonic entity, some type of spiritual realms that are being introduced through these medications. If you look at the definition of pharmaceuticals, pharmakia, that's where it's coming from. Look that up. This is in black and white, and people will call it religious. Then why is it in existence, in reality, with linked a intricate spider web to the actual things that are going on? Think about it. Just think.
Number one, if we just being honest, if it was a black man, or I'm sorry, a white man in the same position, and he attacked a black woman and killed her, everybody would be protesting. You would have Al Sharpton out there. Ben Crump would probably be representing the family. And then y'all would have a GoFundMe up immediately in order to have somebody hold this guy accountable, as well as support the family. On the flip side, it feeds into the narrative even more, because you can't now say that it wasn't a hate crime because he said, I got that white girl, you know what I'm saying? And she was Ukrainian, and she said, I got that white girl. And now it gives even more credence to people that are saying that people need to separate themselves based off of race because of the inherent danger of who you look like and what you represent. And so this is the problem, man. When y'all...
And then I think about that too, is like I'm not saying that this was right. I'm not saying this was right, okay, at all. This is crazy. This is evil. What I'm saying is that why is it that he's saying, why are you saying this? If white people want to look at that and say, dag, this is a hate crime, and go outside and start protesting, and they create that GoFundMe, the same thing that black people be doing, white people could go ahead and do it too. And then there are going to be black people that are going to support them as well. We were oppressed for 400 years. We had went through unimaginable hell and discuss just different things. Gator baiting our base, everything that we do, we were shot down. Now that this is happening to them, not even close to what happened to us before, But I'm talking about now that these things are people people are getting punched in the face, whatever the case is. So you act like, they can't. The way that I know that a lot of our people are lost is because you can't, as a black man, as this is I forgot his name, Anton Daniels. Don't know him, just reacting to content. If you were to go and go through countries, like go through or want to go on a road trip, you'd have to be mindful about where you stop, or else you'll just get attacked. Okay, if it's a sundown town, you will get unalived. So we do have to think about these things. I feel like we need to stop fighting other people's battles in this thing. This is just what it is. It's evil. The reason I'm even mentioning and bringing this up is because there's certain things that I've noticed that it's like, why are people going hard to say something like this when it's like you act like they can't pick up some pickets and protest themselves? I don't understand. Like, you know what I'm saying? Well, what are we talking about here? But I was going to say that the way that he looked before, like twitching and stuff like that, there are things that the CIA can do that you would think is just in a fairy tale. These movies are not based off of somebody's just really creative. No, they're based off of the reality. You could go on an airplane, okay? And if you have a hit out from the CIA or the FBI, whatever, they can chemically change the things in that air cabin, in that airplane, to make one person, and this was one person, have a heart attack. And this was spoken from an ex-CIA agent. I don't remember the video. To even look up that video would be like a lot, but I'm sure you probably may have heard of it. But I can see that being a thing. So I'm not saying that this man didn't just do this just because, but we're under a biological war, y'all. This isn't a normal playing field. The same way that men will say and women will say that, black women who say, oh, you're picking your preference, and that they're jealous and yada yada yada. And this is the same way. I'm gonna say it like this. Yeah, listen, I would be cool if you pick your preference, whatever the case is, but it's not a fair playing field. We live in a world where the wider, the better, right? So it's not a fair playing field. The same way with this situation. We live in a world where, yes, this situation is happening, but there was slavery. There's things still going on indefinitely. It's still very much so racist. So to go on and advocate for this is like, listen, again, sorry for her. I'm sorry that this even happened. But we don't peep that we're also in a biological war. You can't trust anything. At the flip of a switch, these people, that's why they want the mark of the beast, to be able to control people at the drop of a hat. This isn't normal. This isn't normal. This is not a normal playing field that we're working in here. And something tells me this isn't, and it's just hunches and feelings. So people not going to really take you seriously, but it is what it is. The truth is going to come to the light on that day when all tongues are confessing. But it just don't seem right. It just does not seem right. But that's all I really had to say about this video. I hope you understand where I was trying to come from. Like, by no means does this supposed to be happening. You can't ignore the fact that, one, listen, this got media attention. It's going all the way to their president. Two, we not in a fair playing field biologically, spiritually, really, because of the things that are being injected into people, the things that are being pushed into people. It feel off. If you can't really, you only could go off of hunches and how you feel and what's your off of hunches and what your spirit is telling you. But it's just overall, this is crazy. Create that relationship with the Most High through Christ. We have this opportunity. Everybody has this opportunity. His grace is just that extensive, and it's now is the time. But really, just stay sober minded on these spiritual streets, because we are in a spiritual war here, and this was very much so spiritual. But with all that being said, peace.